Sukkah, Perek Halacha 25, Sukkah She'ula. A borrowed sukkah is ksheira. It's kosher. V'chein ha'gzula ksheira. And so too, if you stole the sukkah, it's kosher. Let's go see what the Peirush says. Sukkah ksheira. Mishnah, it says it's kosher. Sukkah 27b. Abeliezer machshir. Abeliezer says kosher. Racham says it's possible. The halacha is like the Rachamim, that in the first day of Yontiv, you should go. You fulfill your obligation with the sukkah of his friend. And the sukkah is different from Lulav. The Rachamim, I should read Abeliezer Pasels and the Rachamim say it's kosher. Halacha is like the Rachamim, that even on the first day of Yontif, you yotze with the sukkah of your friend. And sukkah is different from Lulav, because it says by Lulav, Lachem has to be yours. The four species have to be yours. But the sukkah, it doesn't say Lachem. If it's stolen, it's also kosher. How do you steal it? Ketzad. If he became overpowered his friend, he pushed him out of the sukkah. I guess it's too small for both of them. And he sat there. He fulfilled his obligation. Because ground cannot be stolen, because only things that move can be stolen. The other thing is actually the other person, the persons who it belongs to, even though another person is in charge of it. If he stole wood, which is movable, and he made from it a sukkah, you fulfill your obligation. The Chacham made an edict that if somebody steals from you wood, you don't have to give back the wood, you can pay for it. Because otherwise people would have to take apart their homes. Even if he stole wood and he just placed it down, and he didn't attach it so it can be taken off, and there's no difference from what they were when they were stolen, you still fulfilled your obligation. The case of Mishnah says that if you overpowered your friend, you took him out from the sukkah and you sat in it, you fulfill your obligation with the Torah, because karka is not stolen. If you steal wood made a sukkah, with the Torah, you will not fulfill your obligation. But once the Rachamim made it enacted that you don't have to pay back only money, you are fulfilling your obligation, because the Rachamim literally took away the other person's possessions from him and gave it to you. It's called Hefker, Bezdin Hefker. I guess the Mishnah says that you have to pay him only what the value of the wood is. And he adds, there is a sukkah gzula that you cannot sit in it, that if he did it on top of a wagon or on top of an animal, like in Perek Daled Halacha Vav, it's kosher, and his friend took him and pushed him off, and he sat on it. But he's not fulfilling his obligation. Since it moves, it can be stolen, and it's not. The Rachamim did not say that you do not have to give back the camel with all of its contents, like a car and all of its contents today. Also, which is a Rambam ksheira. If somebody makes a sukkah in a public domain, it's kosher. The Magen Mishnah cites sukkah. So the Rambam learned sukkah gezula, a sukkah which is stolen. And if you put on schach in a public thoroughfare, as it says, it's possible. Rambam say it's kosher. It's explained that he stole the wood and he used it, even according to Abeliezer, that land can be stolen, but you still get you can only ask for your money back, not the wood. And so we find that even if he took pieces of wood, even we're talking about planks, or boards, even though you can't usually find them around, the poor person who was taken from can only ask for the money. Therefore, the Gazlan, the robber, has fulfilled his obligation, because Bezdin decreed so for the purposes of society. If you do it in a public thoroughfare, it's kosher. The Magen Mishnah says it's the same brisa, that if you cover over an area in the public thoroughfare, but as it says it's postal, it's kosher. I love like that. It's kosher. The Mishnah infers in the language, even if you take wood and you placed it and you didn't attach it and there's no change in them, you can fulfill your obligation. That here we're talking about where the original boards are still there. And when he writes he stole wood and he made a sukkah, he's talking that he made a change. And he pushes this off that if he made a change, he required it with a change, because somebody who robs and he makes a change, it doesn't have to give it back. The item itself, he has to pay for what he took. And therefore, why do you say it's only an enactment of the Chacham? It's an actual acquisition of the robber of the item. Now he has to pay for it. Therefore, he explains that the intent of he stole wood and he made a sukkah is only valid because of the fact that the enactment of the Chachamim, they didn't make a change. And what he adds, even he took boards, he means even though the boards are not found around and he left them there, he didn't attach them, is also referring only to the boards. Agos Maimonides explains that a sukkah she'ula, if you borrow a borrowed sukkah, is kosher, so too the stolen one, because it says Kol ezach Yisrael yeshu basukkos. Every citizen of Israel shall dwell in a sukkah, a booth. This teaches that all Israel can sit in one booth, like the Chachamim, that you can use even if the booth belongs to somebody else. And not like Rabbi Lezer, that he says Lulav and Sukkah are the same in the first day, that has to be his. And he adds that Rabbeinu Avi Ezri wants to say that if somebody went into the sukkah of his friend without his knowledge, he did not fulfill his obligation. He brings a Yerushalmi that says that's called a sukkah gzula. If you sneak in at night when he's not there, you use it. The Shulchan Aruch Paskins codifies the halacha that you fulfill your obligation with a borrowed sukkah, and you also fulfill your obligation with a partnered sukkah. Now, the sukkah of a partner with partners is not mentioned in the Gemara. The Rivosh cites that those who say that since it's obvious that if you can borrow it, what's the worst? Certainly if you're a partner, because it's partially yours, and there's no difference. The only one that's forbidden is a stolen sukkah. And those who say that you do not fulfill your obligation, because a borrowed sukkah, while you have it, it's yours when you borrow it. But the partners, it's never yours at all. The part that's the part that belongs to your partner is not yours. And he says there's a question, Divrei Rashi and Tosfos and Ran and Sukkah, and there's no point in going into it here. The Rivosh himself is of the opinion, according to the Rashi and Ran and Tosfos, since you can fulfill your obligation with a borrowed sukkah, certainly you can fulfill your obligation if it's partnered, because part of it is yours, and that's definitely better than borrowed. In the Tshuvas HaRashbash, he writes, there are those who say that a sukkah of shutfin is a partnered sukkah is kosher, and there are those who say it's not valid. The Rivosh says again the concept it's obviously kosher because if you can sit in a borrowed one, but he says it's not a proof, because when you borrow something, it's yours for that entire time that you're borrowing it, and whereas a partnered one is never yours completely. In the Lev Yam of Mechel Zilva, he explains their disagreement whether Shuluk Sheira it teaches us there's no din in sukkah that it has to be his, or that a borrowed one causes the sukkah to be his. The Rivosh learns that it doesn't have to be his. When it says Shilcho, we only say that it cannot be stolen, and partnered one, which is only half of yours, since the other person has a right to use it, there's no stealing. It's not theft, and you fulfill your obligation. Those who disagree explain that a borrowed one is yours only if it's yours completely. And that's why it's called yours for the entire time, and that's only as long as you borrow it, but therefore if you have a partner, it's never yours. Shulchan Aruch codifies and continues, Sukkah Gzula Kshero. If you stole a sukkah, it's kosher. The Mishnah Berurah points out it's not exactly so, because Sukkah's Tas L'chol tells us that you should not have a stolen one. It's talking about when he pushed his friend out of the sukkah and he sat on it in it because land cannot be stolen. Anything that's attached to the ground is the ground, and it belongs to the first owners, and it's like a borrowed one. The Rambam adds, still to begin with, no, a person should not sit in a friend's sukkah without his knowledge, and certainly if he's intending to steal, and he shouldn't make a sukkah on the land of his friends without his knowledge, and also not in the public thoroughfare to begin with, like the Agos Maimonides and the Shem Aravyo, but after the fact he fulfilled his obligation. The Mishnah Berurah continues in Sifkot and Tes. You should be machmer, you should be stringent not to sit in a sukkah without your friend's knowledge. Maybe he's the type of person who's very exacting. He doesn't want to see his things used by anyone else without his knowledge. And therefore you shouldn't make a bracha. But you can sit in it when they're not sham, when he's not there, because he will not be upset. And if it could be that he'll come while he's there, you should not go. You should not go in without his knowledge, even if at the moment he arrived he wasn't there, because maybe the owner will be embarrassed to go in and to eat or to do anything else in front of him, and therefore he's upset that he can't go in. It brings in the Bikur Yaakov. And somebody took permission from the wife of his friend when his friend was in the house. It does help, because she permitted it, and Misrali, her husband, will not be upset. Mishnah Berurah cites in the Magen Avraham that one should not make a bracha on a sukkah that was done in the public area, even if everyone of the Jews says it's okay, because the non-Jews have a portion in it, and they do not forgo their rights. Even though after the fact it's kosher, even so, after the fact it's kosher. You can't make a bracha because the bracha is lavatolo. Your Rav writes it's not a bracha lavatolo, and the Halacha says one should not protest those who have a custom to be lenient, because there are many who say it's permitted. And we've concluded Perek Hey Be'ez Hashem Yisborach.